I can remember pulling up in the car park thinking, I really don't want to do this, but I sort of really do want to do this. But I really don't know what's going to be behind those doors. Oh, just get in there and find it out. And being really nervous walking into the venue.
Hello everyone, welcome to the next edition of Adventures in Networking. I'm James West, co-founder of Only. That's Kelly. Hi Kelly.
Hiya.
We're going to talk about a topic that I reckon most of us, we definitely have, there's a spoiler straight away, experience at some point in networking, which is some form of imposter syndrome. I don't know what I'm doing. Why does everyone else in this room know each other and know exactly what they're doing, and why do I feel the way that I do? So spoiler alert, you're not alone in that thinking, are they, Kelly?
No, definitely not. And yes, that feeling is often called imposter syndrome. So that's just basically where you doubt your skills, you doubt your place in that room, wherever it is you are, or your ability to connect the people that are there. And let's be honest, it's surprisingly common at networking events. Probably because you're going into the unknown to a degree of some description, either the people, the format, the venue, that kind of thing. So there's lots of unknown things. But we would really love to know, have you ever felt like an imposter at networking, and how did you overcome it, more importantly? Because if we can share that stuff with others, great, we can all help each other on that journey. So if you are watching live, please do share your thoughts in the chat to feature on the show.
We need to thank our sponsor. You can see them on the screen, Bibby Financial Services. So I've known of Bibby for quite a while, Kelly. I think you have as well. They have sponsored our show. It's one of the largest independent SME funders in the UK, and they provide specialist and adaptable working capital finance and foreign exchange solutions to businesses. They've done that for over 40 years. You can learn more about how Bibby can help your business grow with the link that is going to appear in the comments. Thank you for supporting our show, Bibby. We're really grateful. More on those guys later.
And they're a family-run business. That was their heritage. So for us, family-run business too. So yeah, really good to have them on board.
Family business helping businesses as well, which I think we recognise we need more of than ever at the moment. So let's move in. Let's dive into this topic. I looked this up. I mean, what is this thing, imposter syndrome? It feels like one of those reasonably, I'll sound old now, modern terms. I don't remember it when I was a kid. But I think it's a familiar dynamic, isn't it? And the definition says, the bit that kind of resonated with me is the fear of being exposed as a fraud. Yes. I think that's a really nice shorthand way to think, look, what am I doing here? I don't really understand what's going on. I think we can often feel that way in business because it appears everyone else is doing well or knows exactly what they're doing. And I think, Kelly, that's magnified at networking. Why do you think that might be?
Definitely, because I mean, when you think about networking, it's that feeling that everybody knows each other. They've already built that relationship. They've already spoken to each other. They already get on really well. Why would they want to talk to me? They all seem to know what they're doing, so they might do really good introductions. They might know what to ask for when it comes to calls to actions. They might be being past business. They feel like they've got their stuff together and they've really, they're holding it tight. And then obviously how post-COVID, putting yourself out there can feel even harder because we've collectively reduced how much we go and socialise and go out to work. So those opportunities probably before, where they were in abundance and people had more tolerance, I guess, or were more open to the volume of that stuff, that does feel a little bit more of a pressure now to get it right and get it right quickly.
Yeah, we're sort of out of practice, aren't we? I think with the mechanics of socializing, people don't do it more. There's loads of studies about this. I mean, it's beyond the scope of what we're talking about to an extent, but the post-COVID world's different, probably accentuated by social media. Because I think we've become so reliant on social media and our ability to curate what we say. But you put me in a live networking event, you're right there, you're interacting in real time, there's nowhere to hide. I think that leads to a sense of feeling that I'm suddenly very vulnerable in that space. So, again, I think what we're talking about there is, don't beat yourself up. This is a familiar feeling and it's probably got more extreme. So we've already got a comment. I'm going to pop this on the screen from the fantastic Richard. just for the benefit of people listening on the podcast. Richard said, I used to be an employment solicitor in a room with several other solicitors and HR people, but then I realised that I have every right to be in that networking room as much as everyone else that's there. I think that's a really nice summary of that feeling, isn't it? You know, why was Richard any less than the other HR people or solicitors? He's equally as qualified. But I just think that's a natural feeling, isn't it, Kelly, that we think, oh, these people are, you know, more legit, or they're not though, are they?
They're not. And I think, do you know what? Give ourselves a pat on the back for being so trusting that people we come across that we don't really even know or have any dealings with, we assume that they are top of their game and they know their stuff. So I think that's a real positive. We don't go in being cynical and thinking, oh, wow, you know, I'm the greatest in the room. What have all it? Certain people will do that. Of course, they've probably never had imposter syndrome, but we're being thoughtful in that space and we're saying, oh, am I all right to be here? Like, do I match up to all of this stuff? Richard is one of the nicest people you will ever meet, you know, and in terms of characteristics and, you know, academics, it doesn't matter. We're all on different levels, aren't we? We're all in different spaces in that place, and some will be further ahead of us in some spaces and some further behind. And I think particularly for networking, it's that personality and that character that you need to have your confidence in, because the other stuff, you learn that, don't you, along the way?
Definitely. Well, let's talk about our experiences, because we love networking. I think we loved it probably fairly quickly, didn't we? But let's try and wind this back. So as leaders of a networking business, we owe so much to networking. Kelly, did you ever, though, have a form of imposter syndrome when you first went networking? Tell us what that was like.
Yes. And I share bits of this story all the time because it was at BNI. I was 22 years old. I was a travel counsellor. It was my first experience of being self-employed, let alone going out into the networking world. So I was really green around the gills for many reasons, you know, new baby, I was a new mum, all of this stuff going on.
Oh, that new baby is now a member of staff. That's weird, isn't it?
That is really weird. That is really weird. And I think for me, it was, I can remember pulling up in the car park thinking, I really don't want to do this. But I sort of really do want to do this, but I really don't know what's going to be behind those doors. Oh, just get in there and find it out. And being really nervous walking into the venue. I've talked about it before in terms of kind of getting to the table, and if you know the format of BNI and it goes around the room, and as it gets closer to you, you get that darn tickly cough that won't go away despite how much you try and swallow, and the amount of orange juice you drink, it just gets worse and worse. And then standing up shaking because everybody else was so polished in their introductions, they'd nailed it. They knew what they were doing. They were fantastic. Like, they were even, some of them were even funny. Wow, what a fantastic experience. But then you're going to get to me and I've never done this before, and I'm going to shake and hold a piece of paper. I can still picture what I was wearing. I can still picture the view out of the window. I can still see the table in front of me, and that will stay with me for a long time. I think there's a pivotal point there, though. Lots of people would have never gone back because that's quite a bad experience on many levels. But once you push through that discomfort and you understand actually what you gain as a result of pushing through, it just opens it up so much more, doesn't it? So yes, definitely experience that.
What do you think the turning point was? You know, what sort of things did you started to click that made you think, no, I am okay here. I am in the right place.
A lady called Sarah, really kind, got me a coffee. She'd invited me along anyway, so she was kind of in the room looking out for me, waiting for me to arrive, saved me a seat next to her, made me feel welcome, made me feel wanted, introduced me to people that she thought I would probably get on with because she'd met me once or twice before, so she'd already broken the ice for me. And I think that's the key. It doesn't matter how new you are to networking, how scared you are of it in some respects, just find a buddy. Just find a buddy that you can be open and honest with and say, do you know what, this is really quite scary, or I don't know if I've got the chops to do this, because they will soon, they're a good person, they will soon put your fears at ease, because we're all deserving of that space. We absolutely are deserving of that space. And I think as you go into networking and you do more and more of it, you realise that Bob over there fluffs his lines sometimes, and Alice is running in the door late 10 minutes one week because that's what happens. You know, we get it all the time, don't we, in online meetings? People are busy, people have lives, things happen. That's fine, because we're humans and we're business owners.
There's something really important there about being honest with yourself, and I think that's probably, I don't feel like we see that as often, what you've described there, where people will, you know, we say in one of our educations, if you meet someone you think you're so good at networking, ask them. Most people are going to be really flattered. If you said, look, I'm trying to learn my way around networking, can you give me any pointers in terms of what I say and how I act, etc.? I can't imagine anyone's going to go, well, no, I'm not going to give you the time of day, because most people would be flattered. Is there something, I wonder, Kelly, around social media that's really kind of driven this idea that we've got to arrive fully formed, we know exactly what we're doing, everything is perfectly polished, and we can never admit that we don't know everything?
Yeah, definitely. There's a pressure on us, because if we don't know all of the answers, our competitor will. That's what we've got in our heads, isn't it?
I think so.
You know, and if I'm in a room with, we don't call them competitors, do we? Because we don't believe in that. But if I'm in the room with somebody who does the same thing as me, again, they don't, but we'll go with me for a second, and somebody in this room is asking me a question and I don't know the answer, are they going to go over to them and ask them, and then they're going to get the business? But in reality, that's not the way of the world. It's how you take that information and how you deal with it. I would much rather work with somebody that says, you know what, I don't know the answer to that. It's a really good question. Leave it with me and I'll go and find out for you, rather than put pressure on myself to know everything and be the font of all knowledge and make sure I'm showing up in all of the right ways.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, we used to dabble. We used to build websites, didn't we? Yeah. You'd hear people say, I want to get to page 1 of Google, and you know, certain people would go, yeah, I can do that for you. My question would be, page 1 for what search term? Because I can get you to page 1 for something that no one searches for. That's not difficult. What do you actually mean? And also, there are 240 factors involved in your ultimate ranking. There's probably more now. If you think there's a quick fix way of actually hacking your way to the top of that, I'd rather hear me talking. You know what I mean, don't you? I'd rather hear the honest answer than the fake,
definitely,
over salesy answer.
Definitely. And I think what you're saying there is really key, because we don't have to, we don't have to be at that level. We can be ourselves. We've got to show through in our brands for people to understand who they want to work with and who they want to deal with. If we're all showing up in the same way, it's not going to work, is it? You know, and I think attention span is not there, isn't it? It's definitely shot. People don't have an attention span, and I think people are so intent on just creating this real snappy, whizzy introduction that might blind me a little bit with science, and I'll chuck some buzzwords in, and I'm hoping that they're the things that you want to hear. But then when you come to you and ask you questions, and you might not actually be able to fulfill that. So I think it's just about showing up and being yourself, for me.
Oh, we could have said the word authentic there, couldn't we?
Yeah,
we won't. Instead, we'll share this little quote from Chris Mansfield, the king of networking,
yes.
A contender. And he said, my biggest fear of networking is walking in the room and knowing everyone. Well, that's going to happen, Chris, because you probably do know everyone. That's the whole point, isn't it? But but on the flip side, because not everybody will be feeling imposter syndrome that's listening to this, they probably will have done it at some point. I'm probably with Chris on that one now. When I turn up at an event, I'm a bit like, oh, got to gear myself up for this now, whether that's online, in person, particularly in person. That's not my favorite, but I've got to go, right, okay, I'm going to know a lot of people here. How do I distribute that time, and how do I show up in that space? And that's a nice problem to have, isn't it? Yeah, it's a slightly different challenge, isn't it? So just quickly, I mean, my experience, similar to yours, Kelly, I think what my memory of networking was, once I started to get a grasp on what we were there for, because I think that's not a given. Well, I've rocked up and everyone's introduced themselves and I don't really understand the mechanics of what's going on. Beyond that, once I started to, it dawned on me that, look, well, I've got to help people and then they might help me. Which is actually a nice shorthand way of describing networking, rather than I'm just going to keep pitching at everyone and hope that eventually someone buys. Yeah. Once I realized that I've got to try and help people before I'm going to get help back, my next thought was, I don't know anyone important. I haven't got loads of buying power. I can't support all of these businesses. And that was my my thought of, oh, I don't really belong here.
Yeah.
So, and again, like you were saying, Kelly, a lot of that was just persisting, kept going back. My strategy, if you like, just became, do you know what? I'm just gonna, what was the thought process? I'm just going to ask people questions because I'm treating this now as a fact-finding mission. What can I learn from these other business owners? Because I still didn't think I'd ever be able to particularly help any of them. But very quickly you realize help doesn't mean passing business referrals all of the time. It doesn't mean buying from everyone you meet, because that wouldn't be realistic irrespective of the budget. It was more about, well, can I support them with, support? Can I just hear what they've got to say? Can I maybe help them understand how their services might be able to help me or the people that I know? There's a million different ways to help people, isn't there?
I've literally been having this conversation with a new member this morning. Absolutely lovely lady, new to, I won't say names, obviously. She's a month in to her membership, and I was talking to her about what it was she wanted to ask for, because obviously that's really important. We always talk about that. And she said, oh, I do know what it is, but I don't feel like I should be asking for it yet. I've really got to get to know people, and I want to make sure that people see me as part of the group, and I want to have the one-to-ones first, and then I'll ask for it. And I said, that is really admirable. It really is. But she'd already told me she's working with 2 other only members already. She signed up and using their services. She's had one-to-ones with about 3 or 4 others, and she got one of their sisters a piece of work. Like, you've already done so much. You've already given so much. You can ask, because what you see in networking is not everybody has to act the same way. Not everybody's going to bring in visitors. Not everybody's going to give referrals. Not everybody's going to do all of those things. The point is, you create a network and a community of people where you have people doing different elements of that stuff so that they all come in together. You don't have to take it on your shoulders to do all of that. I don't have to go out and find everything for everyone. I don't have to bring loads of visitors here. I just have to be me, and I have to listen to opportunities and support people where I can, whatever that shows up like.
Definitely. Great points, Kelly. One of the comments we hear quite a lot at networking is, I nearly didn't show up today. I think this is in the same sphere, actually. It's slightly a different thing, isn't it? But this idea that, I can't bring my best self to this networking event, therefore I'm not going to bother turning up. What would you say? What's the response there, Kelly? What advice would you give to those people?
I mean, it depends on the circumstances, doesn't it? I mean, if you've got a major life event happening or something, yeah, that's a bit different.
There's a limit, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. But if it is as generic as, do you know what, I'm really not feeling it today, I would absolutely urge you to, that's the time you want to go. That is absolutely the time you want to go, because I hear more often than not, people will message me, email me after the event, DM me on LinkedIn and say, do you know what, I nearly didn't turn up today, but I feel so much more energized. I'm actually out of that groove now, and it's given me the impetus to get on with the day, and really, it's energized me. It's put a spring in my step. I think it's too easy to not show up. It's too easy, any network, it doesn't matter what network you go to. What are the repercussions? Well, none really, other than you miss any opportunities that might be there on the day. You might miss a visitor that wanted to work with you. You might, who knows? There's a number of things that could happen. But I think if you allow that emotion to kick in too much, you really do miss out on the bigger opportunities, because they are there. They are absolutely there, and you'll feel better doing it.
I suspect that's not always, but I suspect often that is linked to this idea that I've got to bring my best self. And I also suspect that's because we assume that the best self is, I've got to be 100% energy. I've got to give a really great account of myself. I've got to shine and pop and show people that they would absolutely want to work with me. And I'm not feeling it today, therefore I'm not going to do it. And in fact, not only is that a slightly false assumption of how to get value from networking, it's much easier energetically to go to networking and go, I'm not going to push hard today. I'm not going to oversell myself. But what I am going to do is show up to show people that I'm consistent, irrespective of, context and emotion. because that's an important way we build a profile of what people are like as people and as business owners, but also to help us. I've completely lost my train of thought there. Go on, you pick it up, because I think you know where I was going with it.
Yeah, it's that it's being yourself. Like, you know, you're not. I'm saying this is probably one of the most constant people you'll ever meet in your life. So I am an anomaly in this space. But most of everybody I know, they have good and bad days. I have good and bad days. I don't want them to curate who they are in their personality just to match me. If you're having an off day, you can have an off day. You don't have to commit to loads of stuff. Like, don't overwhelm yourself even more. But like you say, if you are part of a community, it's just like not showing up on social media for a month if you regularly do it. Like, you're just breaking that consistency, aren't you? And I can guarantee if you show up and your personality is a little bit out of kilter, people will ask you if you're okay, because they'll notice it and they'll show support for you. And that's probably at the time when you really need it. So allow people to do that for you, because that's what good community's for.
That was going to be my point, that when you're not in the mood to sell yourself, don't bother, because it doesn't work anyway. Particularly networking is about building relationships, not selling at people. So if you turn up with the idea that I'm not going to shout and scream about what I do, but I'm going to find out who I can help, who I can support, who I can listen to, will actually get you further in networking than if you bring your best self. Because no one wants that stuff, do they? No one wants the sheen. No one wants the, you know, the often over exaggerated picture of this person's amazing, because we're all humans at the end of the day.
It's tiring at the best of times, isn't it? But if it's forced, it doesn't feel natural. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, well, we're going to talk more about being more confident and comfortable at networking. But we're going to tell you a little bit more about our sponsor, Bibby Financial Services. So if you don't know Bibby, where have you been? But they are one of the UK's largest independent SME funders. They are part of a long-established family business, which, as Kelly said, we love that. They provided specialist and adaptable working capital finance and foreign exchange solutions for businesses for over 40 years. Rated excellent on Trustpilot. Today, they support over 8,500 clients across 9 countries.
So if your business is looking to improve its cash flow, invest in new equipment, refinance existing equipment, or trade more effectively internationally, then call them on 0808 501 6622 or visit the website that we'll put into the comments.
Brilliant. And thanks again for supporting us, Bibby. So we're going to move on to how to feel less like an imposter, or if you don't identify with being an imposter, just be more comfortable and confident in a networking event. Kelly, we're going to kind of block through this as a series of questions, but focus on strengths rather than weaknesses. Why do you think that's important in the context of this discussion?
Well, because it will reinforce that positive feeling in you. You're not going to be battling, are you? If you're focusing on the strengths that you can bring in that space, and you're trying to bat out what you think are maybe more weaknesses, then that's going to come to the fore, isn't it? And that's going to be attractive to people, and you're going to attract a certain conversation. And also, it just makes it a more comfortable experience. Like, nobody wants to be thinking about their weaknesses and worrying about that in a space. Talk about something else. Talk about a hobby that you share with somebody, and be passionate about that if needs be, but look at the strengths.
Now, I think that was going back to my reason, because I was a journalist. I was comfortable being the question asker rather than kind of answering, and that was my way to break the ice. I just ask lots of questions, and funnily enough, people love answering questions about themselves, and they open up. And I think that's the key, isn't it? As opposed to, hi, I'm James, do you want to buy my services? People immediately close down, and it's hard to then break into a natural conversation once you've done that. So
definitely,
yeah, that's one of those strengths. So I wondered if this would come up, and I know Chris really well. I'm just going to read this quote out that Glenda Shawley has posted on LinkedIn. Thank you, Glenda. And this is in response to Chris saying his fear is seeing the same faces at networking. And Glenda has quite rightly put, why is that a problem? I guarantee that even if you know everyone, there will be things they don't know about you, and vice versa. Glenda, you are 100% right. I will defend Chris, even though he said that. If you don't know Chris, because Chris does know that, he's being quite flippant there in his response. But that is such a good point, isn't it, Kelly? We hear this all the time at networking. Well, I've met all those people now. I need new people. What are they perhaps missing there, Kelly?
You don't. That is the whole point of networking, that you have the consistency, you meet the same people, you have the same conversations, you embed what they know about you and you know about them. And to Glenda's point, people are endlessly fascinating. Like, I've known people for 10 years plus. I'm still finding out information about them that I didn't know. You know, you can talk to somebody forevermore, and if you hit it off, you won't ever get bored, because there's just so much to find out about people. So I do agree with you, Glenda. I think too many people get caught up in the shiny. Oh, I've got to talk to as many people as I can. Oh, well, let's hope there's loads of visitors there. No, calm down. Remember what you've got in front of you. It's the same with our sales processes, isn't it? We forget about the clients we've already got. We're always looking for new. Whereas what can we do with the people that we already service? It's the same in networking. How can we even build more depth into those relationships?
I think the people that say that, Glenda and Chris again, would agree with this. Well, I know all the people there. I think what they're saying is, well, I've run out of people to prospect at. I've tried to sell to those people and they didn't want my services, therefore I need new people. And again, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what networking is. It's not a prospecting opportunity. You build relationships, which then lead to opportunities. Relationships are not built on one conversation, Kelly, are they? We've said that before. So it's important to have those follow-up conversations. And it's also predicated on the idea that our situation is static. It never is. Our requirements, our circumstances change on a daily basis. Therefore, there are always opportunities kind of meandering their way through, which is why you've got to keep speaking to people, because suddenly one day, do you know what? You've said that to me before, but now I'm ready for it. Or I met someone last week that needs that exact thing. So Glenda's getting worried now. We weren't having a go at you, Glenda, for saying that. She doesn't know Chris. Jen, promise. It was a fantastic point, and it gave us a nice cue to talk about that. Connect with Chris anyway. If you don't know Chris, I mean, he's a great person, and you seem like a good person to know. I'm digging myself a hole now, Sally.
You are. What I do just on this point, for people that know Chris, he's Mr. Brighton. He knows everyone, and I think his point was, I'm going to walk in the room, I'm going to know everybody, and you know where I go. Glenda has brought up an angle to that point, and Chris would be the first one to say, as we are, no, you don't think like that, because if you're a good networker, it doesn't matter who you're talking to. You could have one person in the room with you that you've known for 10 years. That's still a good opportunity to have a conversation. So Glenda, thank you. That was a really good point, because you are right. People talk about that a lot, and they mean it when they say it. So yeah, thank you, Glenda.
Kelly, okay, yes. I'm going to ask you about an accessible product. Why is it helpful to have an accessible product or a simple ask when you attend networking events to make you feel more comfortable? So just to preface this before Kelly answers, this is the difference between, hi, I'm James. What was I previously? I was a writer. If you want help with Twitter, I've written a blog that gives you 10 tips to get more engagement on Twitter. Click the link, you can read it now. That's an example of a simple ask, as opposed to, I'm James, I do writing. I'm not even going to tell you what I cost, and I want clients.
You've kind of pointed this in a certain direction, haven't you?
I have pointed this in a certain direction, but I think it's really important for people to understand all asks at networking events are not equal, because if you're selling something that's £10 or £50, it's much easier than, well, the better you sound as a coach, for example, the more I assume you cost. So if you really do a good job of selling yourself as a coach that fixes problem X, I think you probably cost £10,000. Yeah. And I would then struggle to refer you. But Kelly, do you want to elaborate?
There's loads of stuff there. On that point, you've done exactly what most people will do. They'll assume that coach costs £5,000-10,000 rather than ask, because they won't want to be embarrassed and they won't want to feel like they can't afford it. Okay, so they'll probably avoid that person. They may not even want to have a one-to-one with them because they'll be worried that they're going to get sold at. That's not what networking is about. It's about finding out about each other's products and services so that you can be ambassadors for each other. It is absolutely not about getting into conversations to sell at each other. So forget that. Wherever you network, forget that, okay? Given your examples, so yes, I can remember you saying this 10, 12 years ago. I'm an ex-journalist and I help people develop their Twitter skills, whatever you used to say. You'd elaborate, you do tweet of the week, wouldn't you? Now, some people would say, why would you do that? Because you're really niching into a space that maybe not many people want. No, I'm still a content writer. I'm still an ex-journalist. I still know my way around words. I still can help people outside of that. But when I'm talking, people are tuning in more because I'm being more specific and I'm not being vague. So if they like me and they like my funny little tweet of the weeks and they like what I'm saying, they'll ask me if I do other stuff because they'll want to work with me because they see me as that person. Okay, so that's really important to understand why you would do that. And the other thing, like you say, I'm more likely to risk a £15 entry level product or a free webinar or a download or a fact sheet or something that you're giving me so that I can gain more information about you, build my armor of how I know you and understand you as a person so that when I'm out there listening out for opportunities for you, I've got all of these things. I might even also buy one or two things myself if they're £10 to £100 or whatever. So it's that product ladder, isn't it? Getting people onto the rungs of your product ladder so that they can, in time, the right ones will go further up the ladder. But in the networking space, you want as many people on those first couple of rungs of your ladder as possible. So make it easy for them to do that because that's the way they find out about you and your business.
Yeah, it's just, we could have said that in a very shorthand way, that if you're going to networking and you want to sell people £5,000 coaching packages, that's hard. You can do it, but you've got to be in it really. That's what I would say is kind of an advanced level of networking. And what's not going to, I tell you what won't get you to that 5,000 figure sales mark is just by doing a better intro. The only way you're going to get there is building really good relationships with people and having the conversations with them, which help validate your skill set so they can either buy from you or refer you. So, but do think about that product ladder, because there's nothing more disheartening than going to networking, keep asking for something and never getting anything, as opposed to, all right, it might be lower impact, but at least you're getting a sense of the cause and effect of, I've built good relationships. People are now helping me. Have you made it easy for people to help you? So, well, on that topic of help, why does helping other people in the networking group that you attend, Kelly, how does that make you feel more comfortable?
We talk about this all the time, don't we? People want attention. So we want to be able to talk about ourselves. We want people to like us. We want people to give us stuff. The easiest way to get that is to give it in the first place. I'm going to find it really hard to not support you, follow you, have a conversation with you, give you opportunities if you've already done that for me. Okay, now it's not always going to be reciprocal. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day, giving a lot to their network, to one person in particular. They get a lot back from the network, but not from that one person. And I was trying to say to them, but that's just the serendipity of networking, isn't it? You give where it's applicable and you receive where it's applicable.
Yeah,
so
you win some, lose some, don't you?
You lose some. So don't get too caught up on the where does it come from. It's just the act of giving and receiving, isn't it, is the key there. So in order for it to help you in that imposter syndrome spaces, you feel part of something. Now, I do belong here because I am able to help these people. I do have the ability to, I don't know, lots of the easier asks are, I've just built a new website. I'm going to pop a link into the chat box. If any of you have got 10 minutes, could you just have a look at it for me? And if there's any typos or, links don't work, could you let me know? That's a really easy way to help somebody in your network. And it's a really easy way if you're feeling a bit like, oh, I don't know how much I can give. Jump on opportunities like that, because that's 10 minutes of your time. Really important feedback, probably will save somebody money on a copywriter or, a proofreader, sorry. You've really helped someone, but you've just given them a small part of their time and you've raised your energy levels because you're feeling like, yeah, I've really contributed here. I've really helped someone.
Definitely. Okay. I feel like we've answered some of these already, but I'll ask anyway in case you want to mop up. But Do you think people, Kelly, approach networking with the wrong mindset? Is there an opportunity to maybe reframe your goals at networking?
Well, I think the first question is, how many people actually have a goal for networking? Because I'd say pretty much most people I meet don't have one. And we've been talking about it this month in our talk section. And everybody's like, oh, a goal for networking. I never even really thought about that. So it's about reframing that, because that can be a real game changer. So instead of trying to sell or compete, why don't you just, your goal be to learn and build genuine relationships? Have a goal of, I'm going to have 2 one-to-ones this week or this month, however many it is you want over whatever period of time. And that is often where the real opportunities come, because it's not until we start tracking some of our activity that we can work out which parts of that activity actually work for us the best. So have a real think about what's your goal when you're out networking.
The amount of people we speak to that they will keep saying the same thing. Look, I'm trying to, I've got this product and I'm trying to get visibility and I'm trying to get customers for product X, right? When you get them privately into a conversation and kind of delve into it a little bit more, they'll kind of admit often that, well, it's not really working. I'm putting this message out there and it's not working. To which, if you then think about it logically, why do you just keep saying it over and over again at networking? Why don't you use networking as an opportunity to ask people, does that product A make sense? B, would you know who it's applicable for? And C, do you know enough to be able to at least introduce it to someone that you know? Because the feedback from that will teach you all you need to know about not just what you should be asking for and saying at networking, but also maybe how you position that product everywhere. Website, social media, email marketing. We miss that opportunity to learn, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not working, don't keep doing it. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got, and you get what you ask for. So if you're not asking for anything, you're not getting anything in return. So yeah, it's really important.
And so if we move away from that strategy of, which we've talked about this so many times, but a lot of people go networking thinking it's a volume game. I'll talk to enough people, I'll eventually get a sale. So they're just prospecting effectively. I'll keep going until I find the customer. Let's just say, what if you switch away from that? What does that do for your confidence and the feeling of fitting into a network?
No one wants to be sold at. No one. I've literally never met anybody who's like, yeah, bring it on. I love being sold at. I'm sure people will challenge me on this now. No, inherently, we don't like it. So when you sell it, people, they switch off. They'll come into a conversation and they'll think, oh, I'm going to get to know this person. And then you get death by PowerPoint. And 20 minutes later, you're still biting your tongue and you're thinking, I'm never going to speak to this person again. But don't put yourself into that position, okay? Doesn't matter how hard you work to change somebody's initial perception. People are less likely to be open to listening to you in the future if you've ruined it on the first attempt, basically. When people are open, then they are definitely more likely to listen and to try and want to help you. But if you're coming at me with a sales pitch from the get-go, I've kind of gone and I'm trying to get out of that door as quick as possible. I'm trying to pretend the Wi-Fi is not working, and cutting the call off. And I joke about that sometimes, but it happens. And I think people don't understand they're doing it. And I don't think it comes from a bad place. I think people are passionate. I think they need a sale quite often, and there's quite a bit of pressure on them to do so. But that behavior does tend to shut people down very quickly.
When you metaphorically kind of open the window and let relationships and conversations breathe, we're talking about this from the perspective of, why do we, the networker, sometimes feel uncomfortable? And one of the fastest ways to feel uncomfortable is sell at everyone that you meet, because they will feel uncomfortable and it creates a bad atmosphere. When I keep having all these, I go to the networking event and I get shut down. I have the one-to-ones and people switch off. This networking thing doesn't work. No, but check your own behavior. It's because you're uncomfortable. You've made them feel uncomfortable. You don't know if they've got any interest in that thing you're trying to sell. You're prospecting. You're not networking. Open the window, let the conversation breathe. And that's when people will start thinking clearly. You will start thinking clearly, therefore you'll listen. And that's when people, Kelly, you get this all the time. People will go, you've made me think. That person that I met in Bristol would love to come to your networking group, or but you've got to have space, haven't you? That sounded like George Michael then. You've got to have space. Don't sing on a
live broadcast. Definitely not. No, definitely don't do that. Yeah, I mean, the point is, this happens to me not that often anymore. It used to be, I used to get it quite a lot. But on the odd occasion, I will get that. Right, I'm just going to download on you, and I'm going to spend the next half an hour reading off of my PowerPoint that I've prepared. I know you're not going to probably buy this, but I'm just going to do it anyway, right? And I'm nice. I sit through it. And the whole time I'm thinking, I can read this. You don't need to tell me. It's fine. It's fine. If I like you, that's great. I'm sitting there, I'm smiling. I'm probably going to have another call with you, and I'm going to help you if I can. The problem you've got is you could have the best product in the world, but if I think you're going to do that to one of my close connections, I may be not so happy to give them your information because I don't want to put them through that. And that's the tricky bit.
You've chopped the networking branch, haven't you?
You have. You've chopped a networking branch.
I think the mechanics of what's going on there is that people, the thought process is great. I've finally got a captive audience, and this person has to listen to me. Yeah, they do, but it doesn't mean that that information is going to be taken the right way or used in a way that's going to benefit you. I do think, as a slight aside, and we're not going to go down this route, this is why there are so many people at the moment saying, I want to be a guest on a podcast. I want to do a podcast, not because they've necessarily got something new to add to the conversation, but because they want to be heard.
Yeah.
But that's broadcasting, isn't it? That's not, don't do that at networking. If you
we get it, don't we? We all get it. We all want that space. We all want that opportunity. We all need to pay our bills, but we've got to start thinking a bit more creatively in that space.
Definitely. Okay, a couple of final things. Do we put too much pressure on the networking introduction? Because that's one of them things that I know people feel like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with this. Is it as important as we think?
No. No one cares what you've got to say more than you do. They don't.
I'm not sure it would go that far.
No, they don't care about it as much as you do. Nice. They definitely don't. Yeah, they don't. It doesn't matter what you say. They don't care about it as much as you do. They need to have the pertinent information. And, when you think about it, if I'm going, okay, well, I've got to talk for 30, 60 seconds, whatever long it is. Doesn't really matter if I make a mistake. Doesn't really matter if I get it completely right, because my intention of going to that meeting is to build relationships and have conversations with people after the event. Doesn't really matter quite so much what I say in my introduction, does it? It's about me getting my personality and my personal brand across to you. And that's quite a freeing thought. We put way too much pressure on ourselves to be perfect, but it is okay to be ourselves. I make mistakes all the time. People love it when I make a mistake, so much so that now I don't even really put a filter on, because I know I'm in good company. I have trust in myself. That's my personality. That's who I am. I say the wrong. I'm like Del Boy sometimes, aren't I, with potpourri and all of that stuff. I say the wrong words in the wrong spaces. I could spend months of my life trying to iron that out of my personality, but then I'm not me, am I? So stop worrying about it. Now, if you come along and you're okay, different. That's different. You work on that presentation skill, but don't get hung up about it having to be perfectly formed. It's an icebreaker. It's an opportunity to meet people, and they have to know who you are and what you do in order to further that ice-breaking opportunity. That's what it's there for.
No one's ever complained about someone who did an intro that was too short.
Correct.
Hold that thought. How much, we've kind of touched on this as well, but I think it's a nice place to wrap up. How much difference does it make to simply be honest and ask questions if you're unsure as to what to do at a networking event?
Oh, it's huge, isn't it? It's a bit like when you're at presentation and somebody's using acronyms all the time, or they're using industry speak, and you're like, I have no idea what some of these things are, and somebody puts their hand up and asks, and then everybody sighs because they're all thinking the same thing. It's exactly the same. Just ask, because you're not going to be the only person in the room thinking that thing, and you're going to make a lot of other people feel more comfortable as a result of asking the question.
There's we talked about this earlier. I think you could be right. Okay, imposter syndrome at networking. you could be the most confident business owner in the world. You could absolutely know your proposition. You've got a business that's growing, everything's moving in the right direction. Put most people that have never been into a networking event, and that experience as a business owner doesn't really help.
No.
Because I can't think of any direct parallel that we would have experienced that helped you understand how networking works.
That's true.
There's elements of it, isn't there, in terms of I've been in meetings or I've spoken to human beings. You know, I understand a bit about business, but this thing we call business networking has got no direct parallel, which is why I think for almost everyone, there is quite a steep learning curve, and there is a period of discomfort that you will feel at networking. But I think the point from us, isn't it, Kelly, that we love networking. You know, we talk very openly about meeting each other at networking. We've got all of our friends, all of our business opportunities come from networking. If we didn't push through that discomfort, we would have accessed none of that. Obviously we wouldn't be here, but I think we just would have got jobs in the end, wouldn't we, if it weren't for networking?
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it? That's a sad thought.
What would you have done?
Oh,
You'd
gosh.
probably be running like Disney Cruise Line or something by now.
Probably. That'd be my ideal. I'd probably be a estate agent. Yeah, I would have quite liked to have done that. But anyway.
You're quite high up, and I picture you now putting the stick in the ground with a for sale.
Thank you. My aspirations would probably have been a bit higher, but you know.
I gave you the lead of the Disney Cruise Line, and you did. Kind of over it.
I poo-pooed it. I think there is something similar, and that's dating. Now, bear with me. But you're getting to know someone. You're testing the waters. Do I like being in your space? Have we got anything in common? Are we going to have further conversations? That's probably the most similar experience you're going to get, isn't it? And, you know, I'm saying this tongue in cheek. We ended up getting married after going networking. But it is about that forming relationships and friendships. And probably another one would be when we went to school. We had to work out how to interact with each other and communicate and get our point across and understand who we wanted to be friends with. It's no different. But as our adults, we take away the simplicity of that, and we think we've got to put all of these massive agendas into it, and we don't. Good people in the same space, having the same agenda, wanting to support other good people, that's huge. The potential for that is massive. So just bring it back down to basics. I want to be a good person. I want to help as many people as I can. And if I get stuff in return, then that's amazing. Because I tell you what, you will absolutely get it in abundance if that's who you are.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy, isn't it? Because there isn't a definitive guidebook to dating, but we can probably agree there are certain principles that we should avoid. We always, when you watch First Dates and you're thinking, are you going to ask them a question? Like, if you never ask a question, it's probably not going to build a good relationship, is it? So, like you're saying, you know, try and help people, ask questions, take interest, because you want all that stuff in return, but take the lead. That will make you feel more comfortable.
Definitely.
When you walk in the room. And as Jessica Shell says, don't ask to get married on the second date, aka don't walk into a networking room and go, I want referrals now. No, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to give you a referral. Have a bit of patience.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Right. Well, I think we've probably covered enough ground there. I think the main thing is you're not alone. If you've ever felt imposter syndrome, it does take a while to work through, but just stick with it and just keep it simple. Hopefully we've had some good tips. Any final thoughts, Kelly?
Yeah, just remember learning is all part of the journey. Yeah, and at some point we've all winged it. And some of us maybe do on occasions, periodically. Saying no more. There we go. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
And thanks again to Bibby Financial Services for the sponsor. Glad to have you guys partnering with the show. Thank you everyone for watching, listening, and we'll see you again next month.